Search and rescue crews say they are not going to give up hope. They are continuing to comb through the rubble of many of those 6,000 buildings. A lot of those were apartment blocks that people were sleeping in when the first quake hit. But we are seeing some, I suppose, miracles in those mountains of rubble, if you will. Children and the elderly being pulled out despite being trapped under there for over 24 hours in many cases. We know the Turkish government as well has mobilised around 50,000 people to help with this effort. Many of them are volunteers that are flying in from all parts of the country to try and do what they can to assist. And that international aid, well, it is also coming. Of course, the Europeans were very much the first ones here, just given how close they are, the proximity, if you will. But we are now starting to see the Americans and the Canadians arrive, many of them as well with specialist acoustic equipment that can be used to listen in on that rubble. It is, of course, just a very desperately sad situation right now for the country. This is undoubtedly the worst natural disaster to hit this region in living memory. But right now it does still remain a search and rescue operation. All focus right now is just trying to see if there is anyone else left trapped in that rubble.
All right. Hopefully some more good stories coming out of there. Thank you, Trent. Foreign correspondent Trent.
Oh, sorry. I am not an expert on these slides. And
Foreign correspondent Trent.
No.
Yeah, those search and
Foreign correspondent.
Okay, respect is paramount. Sorry, we will continue. We will move. No media organisations represented in this room are people I'm talking about, but certainly when I was here, I saw international news crews, in my opinion, being disrespectful to the situation, climbing over rubble in live operations, often intruding with cameras when emergency personnel were trying to do their job. I don't think that's what audiences want. We're not here for disaster tourism. And I think audiences watching at home are smart enough to understand when that is happening, and they don't like it. I will play you another clip, if I could, doing what's called a walk and talk in the business down the street. But towards the end, you might notice I make a deliberate decision not to go near the police, and that is because just before going on air, I had been told that one of the police officers searching the apartment building was actually looking for his lost daughter. And he was still working. And so I think this was, for me, an important point that I think respect is extremely important.
I'm speaking to you from the city of Malat here, in fact, one of the busiest streets of this city. Now, this was one of the worst hit areas. Normally, this street would be filled with people out shopping or going to restaurants and cafes, but it really now is kind of ground zero for the rescue operation. I'm going to step out of frame for a little bit. I want to show you just sort of how much of a lottery this is in terms of how many buildings came down, which ones stood, which ones remained. This is an apartment building which just came crashing down on Monday when the earthquake hit. There is now no signs of survivors left. That building has basically been condemned, but you can still see the signs of life of the people that once lived in there. There's a wardrobe there that's been flung open with somebody's clothes all out on the street. There's also a television set, believe it or not, that's still standing upright on a bar fridge. It wasn't knocked over somehow, despite the building collapsing. We're going to take a bit of a walk down the street because I just want to show you, while that one's collapsed, right next door, they're still remaining standing, but it comes with a big warning, which is structural engineers are saying many of these buildings now are not safe. That's why you'll see police tape and the like blocking the entranceway. Some soldiers are going in there now to take a look, but we're basically being told be very careful and don't remain around those buildings too long, because if there is another violent aftershock, then it could quite easily come crashing down, just given how knocked around it has been. And then basically what you'll find then at the end of this just short walk that we're going to take is the remains of a much bigger apartment complex where the recovery operation is still underway. It is a huge pile of rubble. I'm going to keep just a little bit of distance because the military there have just told us that they have found a body of an elderly resident that they had been looking for, and they just don't really want TV crews too close, which is quite understandable. This is a picture playing out right across southern Turkey right now. Again, they are understanding that as each hour passes, it's going to probably move from a rescue phase to a recovery phase, but they're still using the daylight that is available to try really hard to search for any more survivors here and across the region.
Local sources so important, to talk to local people, to ask them what is happening, to not just rely on what you read online, to exchange telephone numbers, to get Instagram accounts, to ask for video. I think some of the strongest news lines that I got was through speaking to people. We still stay in touch with many of them, including Bessim, who's a retired firefighter now. His last operation was the earthquake. He lives in Van. He would tell us where rescue moments were happening. Also, of course, just speaking to people and allowing them to get their voice on air, so it's not just me all the time. And I tried to do that. I'd like to introduce you just briefly, if I could, to Sena and Mohammed, just two of many people that I met while I was here.
At Van Yayıncılığı University. I'm a pharmacist. I work there as an assistant professor. I'm here with the Turkish Mountaineering Federation team. Some of the team members are drilling through the cement, and some of them are trying to break down the blocks. So it's more physical, and we're breaking, we're listening. It's like in shifts for like 1 hour we work, then we listen for the voice, and then we keep going.
Ben her gün biz daha doğrusu orada oturuyorduk gece sabah 4'e 5'e kadar. Deprem gecesi bugün eve erken gidelim dedik. Erken çıktık. O gün deprem oldu. Yani çıkmasak ve orada enkazın altında biz de kalacaktık. Yani bu bir şans mı diyelim, tesadüf mü diyelim bilmiyorum. Burada da aynı gün her zaman kardeşim otururduk. O da o gün eve erken geldi. Bu bir Allah'ın hikmeti mi diyelim tam bilmiyorum. İşte deprem oldu ve durum bu yani şu an hiçbir şeyimiz kalmadı.
And then I suppose one of the final points I want to make is just things don't go to plan, and you shouldn't overplan because you'll just line yourself up for disappointment. We largely stayed in Malatya because of transport logistics, but on one day we tried to drive to Adıyaman and there was an aftershock, which meant the road got closed, so we could no longer go to Adıyaman. So we quickly adapted, and actually I found in some ways a stronger story because I then was able to talk to people in a very small mountain community who maybe weren't getting as much attention as people in Hatay or Malatya or Gaziantep. Of course, it's not a competition, but for many of those rural communities, they probably weren't seeing many international news crews. So I did my best to try and incorporate that into some of my reporting. I'll just show you a short snippet.
Well, we are high up in the mountains of Anatolia in a village called Ekenek, and we weren't actually planning to stop here. We were on our way to Adıyaman, which is one of the worst hit cities down the road, but there was an aftershock which caused a landslide and the road is now blocked. But I think it's been an important opportunity actually to pay a visit here because we're seeing up close how many smaller rural and farming towns have also been hit by these monster earthquakes. This town is around 5,000 people, and we've been told by locals that many of the buildings came down in that first earthquake that hit, but then there was some aftershocks, and that was what brought down many of the others crashing down just like this one. Of course, it is a picture of how many rural communities are struggling. Of course, the big cities are getting a lot of the attention and a lot of the rescue effort, but in small villages like this one, the need is also very great.
I think really, in summing up, it of course was the worst disaster that any country could imagine. But as we were saying before, it really did bring out the best in humanity. And I tried my best to explain that on air. There were emotional moments. And I will just leave you with the final two clips, if I could. One for Israel's I-24 and another one for China's CGTN.
Well, I mean, over 135 hours since this quake. I almost can't believe I'm about to tell you this, but they think they may have found 2 more survivors that they are trying to reach up on that pile of rubble. We understand that it is a woman with her adult daughter. There is 2 crews working up there, one from Turkey and one from Blue Sky Rescue in China. They actually have come from Sichuan province, which suffered a major earthquake in 2008. They've got some experience. They know what they're doing. They're working up there with translators now trying to reach those 2 people. We don't know what their condition is. We just had a call for silence a few moments before coming on air, and I should mention that the woman's husband is here keeping a vigil, I imagine praying right now that maybe he'll just get a miracle out of that mountain of rubble.
Wow, wow, wow, wow. glimmer of hope.
I suppose it's probably worth mentioning as well just the volunteers. I mean, I can barely do a live position on air to you right now without somebody wanting to come up and offer me something to eat or a hot drink or to try and pull me towards the fire to keep warm. There's just such a spirit of generosity and kindness here, which really is very inspiring given the absolutely awful circumstances that so many of these people have experienced.
Trent, thank you very much.
And one last video, it's not of me, you'll be happy to know. But this was the tweet that I posted from the quake, which went viral, and I think in many ways it just shows that the bonds of humanity are often connected via our love of moments of joy. And this was a moment of a person's cat being rescued by the Turkish military, and it seemed to have touched a nerve with a lot of people. So I thought I would leave you with that one, and teşekkürler, thank you very much.
Komutanım ikramiye diğer tarafta. Ne tarafta? Diğer tarafta. Oraya mı götürüyorsun? Komutanım iki ikramiye getirdiler. Burada yoktur mu? Yok, Amerikan yanındaki ikramiye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trent Murray. Great talk.
Thank you very much.
And that's exactly what we need to see, to remember that this really is about the best of humanity as we recover from a tragedy like this, and learning how to communicate those moments that remind us that there is so much good in spite of so much disaster.
Evet, sevgili Trent Murray'e biz de konuşmaları, katkıları için bir kez daha teşekkür ediyoruz. İnsanlık yararına güzel yayınlar yaptınız. Çok teşekkürler. Şimdi Afet İletişim Forumu'na 1 saatlik öğle yemeği aramız var. 1 saatin ardından biz tekrar burada sizi bekleyeceğiz.